house yesterday, and we were leaving yesterday evening, and I admit I had been thinking about this morning, but nothing was clicking. I hadn't done anything on yet what I wanted to say this morning. So we went to leave, and by the door was the pile of shoes. You know, when you enter someone's house, everyone takes off their shoes, and they're sitting there. So I was putting on my shoes, and basically I just couldn't stop thinking about shoes. So I was going to make this work. I got to thinking about just all the different kinds of shoes. Like, look around, so many different kinds of shoes, no matter what. It doesn't matter if they're fancy sandals, your old, beat-up tennis shoes you've had for lots and lots of years. They're all completely different, and all of these shoes have taken us on countless journeys, right? No matter what. When you buy a new pair of shoes, it feels real good. Bright, shiny, new. You want to walk out of the store wearing them. They're free of dirt and stains and scuff marks. But eventually you do have to put them on and take your marching orders, go where you have to in these shoes. So your journey will add dirt and debris and that old gum stain on the bottom of the shoe, or grease from riding your bicycle, mud, no matter what. No matter what. All of these shoes take us many different places, and they have carried us through many ups and downs. So whatever shoes God has you in right now, today, trust that they will get you where you need to go. And if God tells you that it's time to buy a new pair, are you ready for those steel-toed boots, or the big yellow clown shoes, or that super high pair of stilettos heels? Let's pray. Lord, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for all of the shoes in this building this morning, and all the places they have taken each one of us, and all the places they are going to take us in the future. Just pray that we can put our trust in you fully, listen to your voice, decide if we need a new pair of shoes. We'll take your orders and keep marching. In Jesus' name, amen.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning. I'd like to welcome you just to sit for this first song and just kind of soak in the words.
No point of rest.
be refreshed in your river, to be able to sit at your table and fellowship with you. Thank you that you died and that you made a way for us to be in fellowship with you. We ask that you take these offerings, these gifts, just continue to do your work across this world. And in your days, in your name. Amen.
Spring Senior High students, God spoke to my heart and said, that's what I want you to do, the Dayspring Seniors. So that's how Blessed Ministry began. Blessed is basically about being in a relationship with our older folks, helping out whenever needed, and fellowshipping together as a group, which we do every few months at a luncheon. Just so happens the next luncheon is scheduled in 2 weeks, on October 20th at Bueller's Main Street Grill. So if anyone would like to join us and become a part of this ministry, please sign up today. The sheet's on the table in the lobby. You're welcome to bring friends. Just sign them up so I can give a count to the restaurant tomorrow. I was going to make that announcement later today, but it seemed to fit right here, so I did it now. So back to my yes story. Currently, the Blessed team includes Jan Miller, Amber Hirschberger, and Ryan Bishop, but there's always room for more. The blessings come and go both ways. We want to be a blessing to our senior Dayspringers, but we as a team are blessed even more as we get to know and serve them. God's call to ministry wasn't meant to stay within the walls of Dayspring. God has given me a heart for the forgotten people in nursing care facilities. There's so many who don't receive visitors and spend lonely, long hours in their rooms in front of the TV. The leaders of Dayspring had asked me to search for a care facility where Dayspringers could join in this ministry. I visited several, but none were extremely welcoming as far as my coming to visit unscheduled. They were more interested in my signing up as a volunteer on their agenda. It didn't seem to be what God was calling me to do. About 6 months ago, a friend had told me about a mutual friend of ours from several years back who was in a small nursing care facility in Massillon. I had been following up on these other facilities, and I didn't take the time to go there. Then a couple months ago, Paula Schmidt told me about a friend she was visiting in a small nursing care facility in Massillon when she said the name Springer and the address, Roar Avenue. I remembered that being the same place my friend had mentioned a few months earlier. Paula Schmidt said she had been talking with the nursing director there, and the director had been praying for a church to minister to their people. It's amazing how God orchestrates everything, isn't it? At that point, it was made clear that I was supposed to go to Springer. I didn't waste any time. I went the next day. Candy, the nursing director, was so welcoming. I visited with my friend from several years ago, and Candy introduced me to a couple more residents that day. Springer's just a small nursing care facility with around 35 people. I returned a couple days later when I hadn't really planned to go. I was just drawn there like I had found where I was supposed to be, kind of like I was home. I've been visiting a couple times each week and have since met all the residents. Relationships are developing, and I just enjoy my time there with them. Now, our Dayspring Second Saturday group, which is our pastor interns, has joined in ministering at Springer, doing a monthly Sunday afternoon worship service. We had our first service in September, and I believe we were blessed as much, if not more than, the Springer residents. They thanked us over and over and wanted to be sure we were coming back again. Any of you interested in joining us are certainly welcome. The next service is October 13th at 2:30. Or if you're interested in visiting during the week, I would be happy to introduce you to the residents. They would love to have you stop by. 2 weeks ago, a group of us from Dayspring went visiting at Springer after the Wednesday evening meal. And we plan to do that monthly on the fourth Wednesday after the meal. Some visited individuals in their rooms, and others visited with residents in the day room. That room was filled with people and conversation. A spouse of one of the residents said that was the most activity she had ever seen there. The residents and staff are so appreciative of all the visitation. Then God further directed me to a young woman resident who is a believer and is hungry for more of God's word. It was like God led me to Springer and then zeroed in on this particular person. God spoke to my heart and said, pour into her, disciple her. My first thought was, Lord, I don't know how to do that. How do I disciple someone? That was fear speaking, which often rears its ugly head when God calls me to do something new. So the Lord and I are kind of having this conversation, and he said, you've been doing this for about 5 years now. So just continue with the one I gave you and just add another one. I thought, oh yeah, okay, I can do this. So this young woman and I have begun studying the book of John. About 2 weeks ago, Jeff Barterstock came to me and said he had a client. He would like me to consider discipling. I asked, Lord, where are we going with this? He didn't answer. I think he probably just smiled. He'll only give me what I need to know right now. So those are the places God seems to be calling you to join in His work. Our Day Spring Seniors, care facility visitation, and discipling. Each time I say yes and obediently follow through, He leads me to the next step. He's taking me to places I didn't expect to go. And as long as I continue walking with Him, I expect there will likely be more. Thanks for listening to my story.
Lord, thank you so much this morning for Lorraine. Thank you that she has put on her shoes and you've taken her so many places lately. And she has been following exactly where you've meant her to be. Thank you that she's listening and hearing so clearly. Pray for all the people at Springer today. They are just being blessed by her, by all the other Day Springers that are going there. Also this morning, thank you so much for Randy and Marissa, Jeff, and Cindy, who have went to Leaf Church. Just pray that people there are receptive to what they're taking there today, and just hearing the word clearly, and that Randy is just delivering exactly what you want him to be giving to those people there. Thank you for Jim's message this morning. Just pray that he also is hearing what you want him to give to us today. And we just thank you so much for all of these people and in all the ways that they're listening and obeying. In Jesus' name, amen.
So I'd like to invite you, if you would, to turn in your Bibles to the book of Joshua, chapter 6. Joshua, chapter 6. Joshua, chapter 6 is a fascinating book, and you're going to find out very quickly that in order to really pay attention to what we have in Joshua, chapter 6, you're going to have to actually start in verse 13 of chapter 5 to really grasp what's taking place. When Kelly began this morning, she started by talking about shoes. How many of you know that my wife likes shoes? Like, if you're a Facebook friend, like, there's two things that I can tell you that Pam, well, three, that she's in, four, that she's in love with. Two of those items would be shoes and jewelry. And she wears them well. But I've thought about it lately because I have increasingly been one of those people that I need to know exactly what it is that we're doing before I leave to go someplace. If I'm going overnight, what footwear do I have to have, right? I need to know what it is that I need to wear in order to do what it is that we want to go do. So if I'm going to end up, if I think I'm going to end up in water, I've got boots for that. If I'm going to church, I've got boots for that. If I'm wearing tennis shoes, Pam says, don't you dare wear boots. We have footwear that gets us places. And today, we are finally going to see in Joshua 6 that the walls come down, right? Today, we see the battle. Today, we engage that battle. And footwear are incredibly important. John Wooden was probably the most accomplished basketball coach in professional sports, or excuse me, college sports. You would have thought it was professional the way he won all the championships. But John Wooden, as a coach, began his practice for the first practice of the year in a very specific way. My guess is, Brad, you know exactly where this is going. He didn't say, on the floor, we're gonna get you into shape. And the guys that were the juniors and seniors already knew. The incoming freshmen always thought this was crazy until they were the juniors and seniors. But he told them, we're going to begin our practice, go have a seat on the bench. He said, now unlace your shoes completely. Take your shoes completely off. And the juniors and seniors were already doing this, but the freshmen were always like, is this some kind of a prank? Like, we're incoming freshmen. This has to be a joke. And then he would walk them through, here is how you put your socks on. And when you get your socks on appropriately, then here is how you put your shoes on. And when you lace them like this. Because if you end up with a blister because you didn't start well, you can't finish. I have to take you out of the game. And that may not be the right time to get you out of the game. If you don't know how tight to make your shoes and your shoes come off, the entire team now is trying to scramble to cover for you. How we prepare, right? How we prepare makes an enormous difference. We talk about how God inside us is greater, and that's completely true. But it doesn't make sense to me to depend so much on the fact that God inside us is greater that we just don't do our own homework. At this point in the book of Joshua, the Israelite nation had crossed the Jordan River on dry ground. They had gone through the purification of circumcision. They had celebrated the Passover for the first time in the corner of their promised land. They saw the miracle of manna stop when they began to eat of the fruit of the land of Canaan. And now they were poised and ready to take the city of Jericho. Now this passage offers details of clarification, revelation, instruction, execution, and redemption. In order to grasp what happened in Joshua 6, we've got to begin in Joshua 5:13. This is part of that preparation. When Joshua was by Jericho, he lifted his eyes and looked, and behold, a man was standing before him. I know Jeff touched on this last Sunday, but look at this as it relates to Joshua 6. And Joshua went to him and said to him, are you for us or for our adversaries? And he said to him, no, but I am the commander of the army of the Lord. Now I have come. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and worshipped and said to him, what does my Lord say to his servant? And the commander of the Lord's army said to Joshua, take off your sandals from your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy. There is a time when shoes are just wrong. And Joshua did so. And Jericho was shut up inside and outside because of the people of Israel. None went out, none came in. And the Lord said to Joshua, see, I have given Jericho into your hand, with its king and mighty men of valor. In this portion of this passage offers a heaven-certified clarification. What was happening here? One writer said that if ever there should not be a chapter break in the Bible, it's right here. To somehow insert a break between the end of chapter 5 and the beginning of chapter 6, according to this particular author, is simply wrong. And his point is that you cannot understand what you read in Joshua 6 unless you begin in Joshua 5:13. Joshua asks the commander the question. He says, are you here to fight for us or to fight for him? For them. That's the question. And the question, okay, you probably heard someone say there are no wrong questions. This question was so wrong. It was wrong. This question was so wrong that the commander just said, no. No. I'm the commander of the army of the Lord. Yahweh, Jehovah. I'm his commander. I don't work for you. And I don't work for your enemy. I answer to God. Now please note, The commander of the army of the Lord had his sword drawn and was ready for battle. Joshua had reason to be concerned, but his assumption was, you're either for me or you're for them, and I've got to know which one this is. Is your sword drawn and you're ready for battle because you're fighting with us or with them? The commander of the army of the Lord just said, no, that's the wrong question. Joshua got it. Heard. He got it. He fell face down. He dropped. He went from standing to being face first in the dirt. And the literary word choice suggests that it was not a graceful descent. Like, if they're being honest, Kelly, you do the acting stuff, right? If they're being honest, you don't want them to gracefully find a way to float down to the floor. You're going from here to here. That's how he was. And it says he worshiped, and he asked a better question. What do you know that I need to know? Great question. Because worship ought to include our wonder that asks God, what do I need to know? Worship ought to include the wonder. What do you know that I need to know? Now you can start by taking off your shoes, Joshua, because you're on holy ground. Remember that Moses was told that when he saw the burning bush? What makes the ground holy? When you're in the presence of the one true God, the ground is holy. Or an emissary of the one true God, you're on holy ground. It doesn't say, by the way, that Joshua worshiped the commander of the army of the Lord. It says Joshua worshiped because he was in the presence of this commander who represented the one true God. And finally, the Lord God, Jehovah, says to Joshua, see, I have given Jericho into your hands. As if he was saying, okay, you fell before me. Turn your palms up. See, I have placed them into your hands. I at least have to ask, do we come too casually into worship? Do we come too casually in the presence of God? Have you ever had that sense that the place that you stand is holy ground? Like, have you ever felt compelled that I have to do something and shed your shoes? Have you ever felt compelled to fall flat on your face before God? You too dignified? Like, what is it that keeps us back? Keeps us standing when we ought to be falling face first before God? When we know we are in the presence of God, do we really want to know what it is that we need to know? What does my Lord say to his servant? What does my Lord say to his servant? In Joshua chapter 6, verses 3 to 5, God offers revelation. Joshua is told for 6 days, you shall. This is prophetic revelation. Hasn't happened yet. For 6 days, you shall march around the city. Now you need to understand that the city was approximately 8.5 acres. It was a walled city. Kind of have a picture of a wall. It was a walled city. You march around this 8.5 acres, which is about 3 times Day Springs property. So if you could take Day Springs property and expand it 3 times, that's essentially the size of this city. And he says, do that with all your men of war. Now, it's conservatively estimated that they had approximately 700,000 men of war. 700 to 1 million. So in order to understand that, the size of Stark County is 371,574. Wayne County is 115,967. Tuscarawas County is 92,176. Holmes County is 43,892, which adds up to a grand total of 623,609. So if you want to picture the size of the military, the men of war, conservatively speaking, take every human being out of Stark, Wayne, Holmes, and Tusk, and have them march around an area 3 times the size of this. Now, we always get the impression that the Israelites were the Davids and they were looking at the Goliaths. Now, you can still hold that vision in your mind if you're considering the fact that this city was a walled city. The oldest walled city in the world is what I'm told. But you also have to look out and see every single human being that is in Stark, Wayne, Holmes, and Tuscarawas County marching around that area. Tell me who really is in trouble. Do this once a day, Joshua, for 6 days. The only noise you are to make is the sound of 7 ram's horns. You've heard of the shofars? March with them. I really toyed with the idea of asking our trumpet players and our saxophone players to position themselves, and without you knowing it was going to happen, just have them just begin that steady drum. When one's taking a breath, 6 more are not. And just that constant blast of the ram's horn. Now imagine being in the city and being able to look out over the walls or through the windows in the walls. And you see 700,000 people marching around, saying nothing, marching around, and at one place you see that they are carrying the Ark of the Covenant of God. And while they're carrying that, they've got 7 ram's horns that just drone on. They march around the city with the Ark of the Covenant, which to me, I just picture this very eerie scene. It says, then go back to your camp. Do that 6 straight days. By the 7th day, you shall mimic the first 6 days with silent marching, the shofar blowing. Only this time get up early and march around the walls of the city 7 times. You got to get up early for this one, but trust me, if you think it's hard to make it 7 times around, again, picture the size of the place. It says that they got up early and marched around the city 7 times. The first 6 times, you do it just like before. But after the 7th time, you're going to hear a trumpet blast. And when you hear the trumpet volume go from here to here, and you hear the trumpet blast, turn your face toward the city and shout with a mighty shout. And the walls are going to come down. Go take the city. That's the revelation of God's plan. Prophetic revelation. This is what's going to happen. You either have to be all in, or you're going to go back and tell the rest of the Israelite people, because this is God speaking to Joshua. You're either going to have to be all in, or you're going to go back and say, guys are going to look for a way to get back across the Jordan. God is crazy. Like God's either crazy, or God is giving us the city. Joshua 6-10 offers Joshua's instruction to the priests and the people. I'm not going to take time to read it, but I want you to scan down through this. Joshua called the priests and he filled them in. And he tells them, go get the Ark of the Covenant. 7 of you grab your ram's horn trumpets. You know who you are. You're the best ones we've got. We are, if we're going into battle, we're putting our best foot front and center. We may be the ones that are to step in the water, the way Pastor Kent said, but when we step into the water, God is going to split the river. Here, we are putting our best foot forward. And take up your position and be ready. It's as if he said, you priests, you stand here. Get the Ark of the Covenant. Get ready, because we're building this around you. The Ark of the Covenant represented the presence of God. Then Joshua gave the people, the warriors, their marching orders. And he tells them there's a certain number of you that are to march out in front of the Ark of the Covenant. A lot of people believe that those are the ones that had been ordered to come along even though their home was on the other side of the river. You are to take the front. You're the front guard. There is a rear guard that's going to be behind. You are warriors. And as warriors, don't make a noise. Just let the trumpets send God's message across the wall. Whose fight is this, anyways? Is this God's fight that you get to participate in? Or is this your fight that you're hoping God is on your side? And the message Joshua was giving was, this battle belongs to the Lord. Joshua 6, 9 to 21 offers the execution of God's plan. I was going to take time to read this, but I don't believe I'm going to. You need to look through this passage. The events of the first 6 days are recorded in Joshua 6, 11 to 14. 700,000 warriors marched around this 8.5-acre walled city once a day. 7 trumpeting horns were blown constantly around the perimeter, and these warriors then quietly returned to camp. It's like they came in this door, they made their presence known and felt, and even the marching itself would have created both dust as well as some noise. The trumpets are blowing, they go out the back door, they go back to camp, and everyone in the room is left to wonder what is going on. The events of the 7th day are recorded in Joshua 6, 15 to 21, where they repeated that, except they did this 6 straight times. They kept marching, they kept blasting 7 times around the city. After 7 times around, completely encircling the walls by now. Like you got a picture that by now, the military is now well-rounding this place. After 7 times around, Joshua gives the command. The trumpets blast. The people shout the kind of robust shout with the confidence that God had given them the city. And the walls fell flat, and we're told that all 700,000 men of war charged straight up in. You ever run across debris like that? Have you ever tried to walk across fallen rock? Like, I have. If you're over 40, you're like, wait, stop pushing! Let me not break my ankles, right? But generally, and since all of them were under 40, they were ready to, in a robust way, sprint up through there, shouting because the walls came down. They hadn't done a thing, and the walls came down. Except that they marched. The walls fell flat, and it says that they charged into war. Do you not think you would charge into war if you just saw walls come down as a result of trumpet blasts and shouts? You'd be ready to follow your instructions. Then you get to Joshua 6, in verses 17, 18, 19, and 21, where we've got to at least take a look at what it means to have devotion. Because those 4 verses, 17, 18, 19, and 21, explain the depth of meaning of being devoted. So chapter 6, verse 17. And the city and the wall within it shall be devoted to the Lord for destruction. Only Rahab the prostitute and all who were with her in her house shall live, because she hid the messengers whom we sent. But you keep yourselves from the things devoted to destruction. Don't take them home with you. lest when you have devoted them, you take any of the devoted things and make the camp of Israel a thing for destruction and bring trouble upon it. Don't take God's stuff home with you and somehow think that God doesn't know this, that you just pilfered what belonged to him. Verse 21. Actually, look at 19. But all silver and gold and every vessel of bronze and iron are holy to the Lord. They shall go into the treasury of the Lord. They are devoted in a different way. Verse 21. Then they devoted all in the city to destruction, both men and women, young and old, oxen, sheep, and donkeys, with the edge of the sword. Devotion. This was God's battle and God's victory. They were foot soldiers now in God's army. Everything in the city was to be devoted to God. Everything. The only thing they were to take with them was the metal, silver, gold, bronze, and iron, and these things were to go into the treasury of the Lord. In this case, everything else was devoted to destruction. And those two words sound like they don't work well together. But they were devoted the same way that they were devoted like firewood. They were destined for complete destruction. When I thought about this, I thought about how much is consistent with what I do. I cut and split and stack firewood. And I do it all for the purpose of heating my house. I don't have any confusion about what the firewood's for. I don't have any regret when I throw the wood into the fire. I have no second thoughts. And by the way, don't try to take my firewood. It's devoted to burning, to heating my house. So when we were sitting at the dinner table one night, and I looked out the window while we were eating, and I saw kids using my wheelbarrow to load my firewood and start walking away, I immediately got up from the table, sprinted to the door, went outside, and I said, "Wait a minute!" And these two gentlemen just looked at me. And they were like, what's the problem? I said, "You have my firewood in my wheelbarrow leaving my property." They pointed 3 houses up and said, "The guy up there said we could have it." I said, "But that doesn't belong to him." Not to mention, I know the guy and I know they wouldn't have talked to him. I know him. And I said, "So you're going to turn the wheelbarrow around and put it back? Because applying it to this is devoted to destruction in my house. You don't have the right to ask me what am I going to do with my own firewood." Sometimes we don't get it when God says this is what this is devoted to. I'm there. But when it belongs to God, He has the right to do what He will with what belongs to Him. Do we have that yet? Like, you get that? And so, in this case, this was devoted to destruction. We don't have time to go into the godlessness that existed in the land of Canaan. God was sending a message, folks. This land is holy. This place has been unholy. The walls have come down. And I will feed the fires with what has taken place here. We may find this troubling, but when God speaks clearly and declares what devotion looks like in specific situations, we need to listen and we need to obey. You don't have to always understand it, but when God declares in no uncertain terms, "This shall be," we dare not do otherwise. So that said, there's an application in this we need to consider. Jericho is believed to be the oldest walled city in the world. The oldest. We're all about preservation, right? Oh, leave those walls there. They've been there since the beginning of what we know as time. I need to tell you that oftentimes in our lives, we see walls that ought to come down, and yet they've been there forever. And we don't know what to do with them. No matter how long walls have existed, those walls that seem so imposing and so impenetrable and so final are still no match for the voice or the army of God. When God says those imposing walls are coming down, they're coming down. And whether we're talking about physically or spiritually, those walls, if God says today is the day, those walls are coming down. Because no wall can stand forever against the command of God. I asked you a few weeks ago, got some walls you want to see come down? And I'm asking you to believe and to trust that in God's time and at God's command, those walls cannot stand. They can't stand. And finally, Joshua 6:22-25 helps us understand that this story is a redemption story. It's the story of the Jericho walls coming down, but it's also the story for a prostitute named Rahab. Along with her entire family, her walls came down. Those of you who gave your word, go find her, bring her out along with all who belong to her. Why? To execute her? Absolutely not. This was a good day to belong to this prostitute. Up until today, she had been treated as if she belonged to everyone else. She had been treated as if she had belonged to everyone else. This was the good day for you to belong to this prostitute, because she belonged to God. Instead of experiencing utter destruction like the rest of the city, she and her family were redeemed, along with the gold and silver and bronze and iron. The metals were placed in the treasury of the Lord, but Rahab and her family were placed in the treasury and the care of the community, of the nation of Israel. She went from living in a city to belonging to a nation. She and her family were now treasured and redeemed. It's a redemption story. And all of history has been impacted as she is now listed in the genealogy of Jesus. Go read the Gospel of Matthew. She went from, quote, belonging to everyone else to now belonging to God, the one that you long to be connected to. And if you are connected to Jesus, you're connected to Rahab. So redemption brings us back full circle. Unless we understand that we are to fight for the cause of the one true God, fight for the cause of Jesus Christ, and be warriors in the army of God, redemption never happens. Rahab didn't say back in Joshua 2 that the people of Jericho feared the people of Israel. She said their hearts had withered and dried up because they heard about the power and the authority and the mighty deeds of their God. Redemption is made possible when we recognize the authority of Almighty God in our world and align ourselves with Him. Not just try to figure out how to get God to fight for us. So again, I ask you, do you have some walls that need to come down? Are you engaged in your battle asking for God to help? Or are you engaged in His battle and taking orders? Are you ready to march? Again, you got walls that need to come down. In their case, they were told to march for 6 straight days. And in the 7th day, heaven rained down. For you, it may be 6 years. For you, it may be 3 hours. Are you ready to march? Are you ready to trust until the command is given to shout? Are you invested to the point where you have marched and you've declared that whatever it is of God, I'm going to do that. I want to be all in where God's concerned. And when God says it's time to shout, do you look left and right and behind to make sure you're not going to embarrass yourself? Or are you so excited about what God is doing that nothing can keep you from shouting? If you're not at that point, march some more. March some more. March until you get ready to shout, unconcerned about what other people might think. And when the walls crumble, are you ready to rush in and take possession of what God has given into your hands? If I had been the only guy that day that broke my ankle, I would have been proud. Proud to have been one of the people trying to sprint over rocks to go take possession of what God had declared was now ours. I'd have been happy to have the scars. I got scars. Some of them I'm proud of, and some of them I'm not. I've done some really dumb stuff. I got scars. But I've got scars that I'd be glad to tell you the story. Imagine being that guy that day where they're screaming, "Medic! Medic! He's down!" And the guy's saying, "Get the medic away from me. I'm charging. If I've got to go in like I look like I'm on a pogo stick, I'm going in." We're going to forego the song. Even though it was the right song. I just need to know, do you understand that you are to be engaged in God's battle, not the other way around? Are you ready to march until you no longer care about what other people think about your marching? Just silently march, trusting God. And when you see those walls coming down, in fact, before you see them come down, you shout when I tell you to shout. Because that too is a prophetic shout. You shout when I tell you to shout, and you'll see those walls come down. You ready? I think Pam and Sean told me. Just, I need you to hear this. And you decide, this is not to put anybody on the spot. You decide, is there a point in this song when you're ready to stand and say, "I'm there. Whatever it takes, God, it's your battle, it's not mine." Just stand where you're at. For those that are this ready, I'm going to invite you shout. Anna, you come up to your key part.
There's a table
with God instead of trying to get God at one with you, I invite you to stand up. Because God, we will fail miserably if we keep trying to get you to enlist in our army. But we cannot fail if we are enlisting in yours. Our agenda changes. It becomes more focused. It becomes more real. It becomes more tangible. Give us your marching orders. And we will march until those walls are ready to come down. Lord, we will shout and praise and give you glory because those walls cannot stand when you declare they're coming down. Change the battle forever. This is how we're going to fight battles in the future. And when we go into conflict, we need to begin to ask God, is this your battle or mine? Ultimately, is it your battle or mine? If it's your battle, I'm in. If it's my battle, I'm sorry. We can passionately care about your agenda, about the territory, the land that you call us to claim. That's the hill that I'm willing to die on. Lord, you have your sword drawn and ready. Your army is strong. Far stronger than we thought. And there is no weapon formed against you that can prosper. Change our perspective, God. We long to see your victory. Let's pray this in the name of Jesus.
Alrighty, now's the time. If you have anything you'd like to share, you heard from the message, it's time to share that now. If you have any prayer requests, we can take those as well. There might